Thank you very much. I'm Bill Zehme, and I need to tell you some things I know to be absolutely true about our guest, Martin Short. He is a one-man celebration, a walking party in his own pants. He is Canada's most decorated comedian and maybe that country's most important export since the hockey puck. With apologies to Don Rickles. Also, he's probably the biggest thing ever to come in a small package, or as he has said, it's better to have loved a short than never to have loved a tall. Please welcome, with the big love, the wondrous Mr. Martin Short.
Not bad at all. Where do we sit?
You want to recline?
I'll sit right here.
Oh, you got throw pillows.
What?
You got the fancy throw pillows.
Oh, I know. Oh, that is comfortable.
Oh, it's exciting to have you here.
Could not be less comfortable.
You could improv with them, you know.
Oh, you could do a little bit.
You know.
What is it? Just impossible.
You want mine?
Well, I'm just gonna put it here and sit
Put it
back
there.
here.
Oh, but the label. Now, if you take that off, we get
nice.
The feds come.
Some show has a budget. All right, there we go. This is good.
Oh, it's exciting to have you.
You know, if you get a pickup,
yeah,
new chairs.
New chairs right away. It's kind of the chair kind of wears you, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, you can't sit in it. That's the only problem.
Which is bad.
Where should we start, Bill?
Well, you and I first met backstage at Frank Sinatra's 80th birthday celebration at the Shrine Auditorium, and you'd met Frank years before that too, hadn't you? I
had met Frank, you know, well, when he was older, when he was I met him right when he and Ava broke up, and he was stunned then. No, I met him in '92 at George Schlotter's house.
Sure, everything happens at George Schlotter's house.
But it was started at George, and a whole bunch of celebrities got on a bus and bused from George's to the Greek, got in the and a strange collection, you know, Don Rickles, but Warren Beatty, but Jackie Collins. I mean, it was the strangest thing. And then Frank, and then I met him, and I went up to him and said, he was standing at the bar, you know, and
did he have a jack?
Yeah, he had a jack. And I said, Mr. Sinatra, you have no idea. You have no concept of how big a fan I am of yours. And he said, I think I do. And he said, what are you drinking? And I said, well, whatever you're drinking, Mr. Sinatra. And he turned to the bartender and said, Jack Daniels. And the bartender said, straight up or on the rocks. And I didn't hear him because I was scared. I thought he said straight up or relaxed. And I said, oh, I'll have it relaxed. And Frank said, straight up or on the rocks! So already I, pissed off Frank.
He wanted to take care of you. But what a thrill, because he was a major influence to you as a kid. I'm referring to the very first Martin Short show, which debuted. How old were you when it?
Well, I had an amazing deal with NBC. In my mind, I was 14.
14.
I only had to do a show once every other week, and that allowed me, you see, because then I could still do film work.
Yeah.
And this was at a time when most kids my age were playing hockey or, protesting the war or something.
Yeah. It was a variety show. This was done in your attic, incidentally, just to make it a little more peculiar.
I had one of those lamps, the gooseneck lamps, and I'd arc it up, so, because even then I needed softening under here. And I'd open with a song, I'd have a guest, then I would, turn off the reel-to-reel, and then I'd put the like Tony Bennett would be on, and I'd have the microphone, do that, get the applause record, do that, and then I'd read from Playboy if I was in, Eldridge Cleaver, let's say. Yeah. I'd read both parts. And Mr. Cleaver, what is angering your people? And then I'd read Eldridge, I'd do his voice. And then I'd end with a medley of songs that weren't nominated or something.
But you would have Frank would be on your show, wouldn't he come on? And
Frank came on a couple times.
And Jerry.
Jerry came on lots of times. I would do all the voices,
Yeah.
and I would, get needle drop. It was a lonely life. And
but Jerry Lewis, I'm interested because something about him must have touched you as a kid. I mean,
I just thought he was funny.
Lack of self-consciousness.
I don't know. I have no idea what makes some people attracted to some kind of comedy,
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain age, I guess people who would end up in stand-up would be listening to Bob Newhart, and I was tending to listen to Nichols and May.
Yeah.
I was more drawn toward improvisation, things like that. But I just found Jerry, I just loved that he, in the middle of a conversation, would just scream at the top of his lungs,
Well, all that work you put in as a kid paid off many years later because when you went to SCTV, you were finally able to, I think everything that you had learned was brought to fruition when we saw Martin Scorsese's Jerry Lewis live at the Champs-Élysées. Take a look at this.
Does anyone mind if I smoke? The broad in the front row with the French bread, do you mind? And the point is, they're terrified of a perfectionist. And if a Jerry Lewis ain't gonna get a distribution deal because of some 12-year-old with the pimples on his face who's head of the studio this week, who doesn't know from Hardly Working or The Errand Boy or Cinderfella, who only knows from Eva Braun with the big Verhoevens or the airplane smashes.
Yes, sir. Like that.
I remember, again, that was when I had just joined SCTV, and I remember Eugene Levy coming up to me and saying, do you want to do this piece? I mean, do you want to, it's kind of a slash to someone that you admire. Do you want to do it? Because he said, traditionally on SCTV, we will do things like Lorna Minnelli, or Eugene would play a character that would, or anyone would play a character that was kind of a combination of all. But it was really Joe Flaherty, who's here tonight, who got us to just be mean to major celebrities and talked us into it.
Now, given your love, your early love for song and dance and Broadway and big, and when did your family finally stop worrying about whether you might have been,
No, they. You mean, well, that they don't get that. No, I don't think actually they didn't worry. They were quite supportive of it. I mean, my mother was a violinist.
Concert violinist.
Yeah, and the first female concert master of a symphony in North America. So that's what I knew from rehearsal. I mean, she went to rehearsal and she had opening nights and things like that. So they were encouraging, actually. I used to, when I was 15, I did my first album called Martin Short Sings Songs and Loves a Go. And again, it was just taking a Frank Sinatra album, and I would tape his intro, do 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 do, but it would be in his key, and I was 15, so. When I was 17. But I did the whole album, and my mother listened to it and critiqued it and gave notes on it and would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 and say, well sung, this note should be rounded. So it was never like, are you an idiot?
No, that's
Those
lovely,
are my
though.
brothers.
That's starting as a boy, you have this eternally optimistic spirit, and you have it in the face of some difficult scenarios. You got some tragedy in your life early on. Tragedy nobody should have to go through. You lost your brother when you were...
At 12?
You were 12 years old, and he was your hero.
Yes, he was like the... And I don't think it's been, I sometimes wonder if I've made it more dramatic, because as you tend to do, but I really didn't. David was an amazing spirit and very, very, very close to me. So it was awful. It was awful to you kind of think if you never go through any kind of loss in your family, you just assume it's going to happen to the other family, the family down the street, and then it hits you and you can't believe it. And then my mother got sick, my father got sick. So by the time I was 20, we'd lost 3 of our 7 family members. But then, none since then.
Yeah.
But I don't know why sometimes that can make someone a drunk, or it can make you somehow stronger and appreciate that this is a party and have more fun, and I tended to go in the latter.
McMaster University, you entered in 1968. Someone from McMaster
Wow.
here? Wow, hey, that's pretty cool.
Well, it was only one hand clapping, so I don't know. It's that one-armed alumni.
You pursued a degree in social work.
Yes.
Still doing it, huh?
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, because I love the pay. No, I think it was a gradual. I started off in pre-meds, and so then I switched to social work, but I just acted.
But that's all you did. Now look at your classmates. Look at you land in a class full of some of these amazing comedy talents that you're all blooming at once. Mm-hmm. You had Eugene.
Yes, Eugene Levy.
Dave Thomas was there.
Dave Thomas.
Ivan Reitman was in your class.
Ivan was. Well, they weren't literally in my class, but they were in the university at the same time.
You and Eugene roomed together, didn't you, when you got out of school?
We did. We had a house in Toronto, 1063 Avenue Road.
Yeah.
Some notorious parties there, Joe. I'm surprised you're still standing to this day.
You got out of school and you joined the cast. Well, you were hired immediately. Godspell, right?
I was still in university, and
you were still there.
Yeah. During my 4th year at university, they had these auditions for the musical Godspell, and everyone wanted to get in it, and I got in it.
Your audition.
And Paul Schaefer was the piano player.
Right.
And Gilda Radner was the first time she'd ever worked, and Andrea Martin, and Eugene Levy, and Victor Garber. And Jane Eastwood, and a lot of
amazing
major talents.
cast.
Yeah.
You dated Gilda.
Yes, I did.
Tell us about her at that time, this spirit of Gilda Radner.
Well, Gilda, I mean, everyone fell in love with Gilda.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone just loved her. She was adorable. She was so funny, and she was just so self-deprecating. I remember she walked, first day of rehearsal, she came up to me and she went, hi, my name's Gilda, nice to see you. She had a pimple here, and she just kept holding it and talking to me like that. And so right away, the first thing you did was you laughed, and then you wanted to be the person that got to go where she was going after the rehearsal. Everyone fell in love with Gilda.
Yeah.
I think it's a safe thing to say.
You later fell in love with her understudy and married her.
Yes, Nancy Dolman, who was Gilda's understudy. That's true in Godspell.
It's amazing. It all happened there. It was a nexus for you.
It was.
We'll have more with Mr. Short after this.
All right.
We're back. Before we leave Godspell, the name of your character was?
Jeffrey, the imp.
The imp.
Yeah.
It's haunted you ever since.
Yes, it is.
You're impish.
The impish quality.
Yeah.
But you can be impish, and then it becomes a little frightening.
Yeah.
It kind of.
Is it worse to be? I wonder if it's worse to be an imp or to be impish. I don't
think either one is perfect.
Well,
but
you're so much more than that.
Oh, thanks.
5 years later, after I believe Andrew Alexander runs Second City and everywhere now, but in Toronto at the time, he'd been trying to get you to join the company for 3 years.
He had. I mean, I think I was nervous. I know I was nervous about improvising because I'd always kind of been the funny guy, but Second City, you couldn't just. It was like, okay, well, are you really funny? Let's see if you can make the audience laugh being funny, and it was easier to kind of say, oh, I don't need to do that. Because you might fail. And I also wanted to do musicals. There were other things I wanted to do, but I ultimately thought that the best way to do Second City is when you yourself really want to do it. Because everyone else who went into it initially, Gilda and Eugene, that first company that Joe Flaherty and Brian Doyle Murray directed in Toronto, everyone was dying to audition for it and dying to get into it. And I actually wasn't, so I thought it probably would be better when I, really wanted to get into it.
Now, you replaced in the company on stage John Candy, right? Was that when you came to Second City?
I believe that's true, yes.
Because you then...
Are you talking about the stage?
The stage itself, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because what I'm getting at is you took over a role that he had in a sketch called Sexist.
That's right.
Could you tell them a little bit about Sexist?
John played a character named Ed, and I don't think it was Grimley. I'd have to check that, but it was named Ed anyway. And it was a scene about two people applying for the same job, a clearly qualified woman and a very unqualified man. and she has endless credentials, and the guy has no credentials. And at the end of, and she has lots of job experience, he has none. And the guy who's the employer is saying, gee, you're just so good, I don't know how to decide. And the guy says, what about an arm wrestle? And then he wins and he gets the job. And the woman, you know, does a kind of classic Second City, I've had it with you, and she storms out, and then there's a last punchline and blackout. And then Fred would play. So,
Fred Kaz, by the way.
yeah, Fred Kaz, yeah.
The classic Fred. The musical soul of Second City.
Absolutely. And so John left, and I replaced it, and I saw that's when Ed Grimley was created, because and I would come out, and I knew a guy in high school who used to talk like that. He'd have a rhythm that would go like that. He used to take photographs all the time. He'd say, I just took a lot of slides over the weekend, but I'm not going to develop them because, like, I know what they are because I took them. So even, you know, you don't forget something like that. And
there was another voice, so you kind of melded two voices.
I got brother-in-law, Ralph. And Ralph talks like that. Hey, babe, how are you doing? You want to get your drink?
So I kind of combined the voices, and next thing you know, I was talking like this, I must say. And then Peter Aykroyd was the employer, and I used to slick my hair up, and he said to me, that hair's getting taller every show. So as a joke, I slicked it right up, and the audience laughed, and I thought, well, why would I change it? Aren't I supposed to? Isn't my job trying to get them to laugh? So that was the hairdo. And so Ed Grimley was formed in that show, and then I kept doing him.
He was clearly the happiest fella alive, always.
Well, I always thought that, I remember a friend of mine who was, at that point, around 30, was flying to California, and she told me that she was so excited about flying that the night before she changed her outfit about 5 times. I mean, you know, tried to figure out what to wear, and I thought, geez, you know, I'd love to. I love that she's still so positive. This so childlike enthusiasm over something like just flying, and I was envious of it. And I thought that's kind of appealing in an adult to still. And so Ed Grimley was like that, and that was kind of the key to that character. So if the phone rang, you'd say, "Gee, I love the phone. There's always such a sense of mystery." This is before he'd answer it. You know, and
holidays drove him nuts, right?
Oh,
Holidays.
well, please, Thanksgiving, what to bake, who to call,
you know.
Well, you went off and did a couple of sitcoms you'd mentioned before. After you left Second City after a couple of years.
I left Second City in 1970, beginning of '79.
Right.
And then I was asked to do a sitcom. Sitcom. I'm English. Sitcom. No, I wasn't. By the way, I wasn't asked. I had to audition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was asked to do a couple of things because I've been working in Toronto for a while. No, I auditioned for James L. Brooks.
James L. Brooks, of course.
For a series called The Associates.
Which was a highly
acclaimed and couldn't have been off faster.
It's kind of how it works.
And then the next year, ABC, I did my second sitcom called I'm a Big Girl Now, starring Diana Canova, Danny Thomas, and Sherry North. And I played Neil Stryker, the office boy. And
tell me what Danny Thomas must have imparted some comedic wisdom to you. Did you learn anything in particular from Danny Thomas? What exactly did you take away?
Well, you know, Danny, it was interesting. Danny would he'd take you aside and he'd tell you that when you are doing comedy, that you have to keep dignity and elegance, always.
It's the spit take.
Oh!
Oh!
The problem is this doesn't go away. This now is here for the night.
Can we see that? He basically invented the spit take, you know?
He invented more than that, I'll tell you.
Yeah, sure. But all the while, the incomparable SCTV show, it was syndicated, big success, ended up on NBC on Friday nights.
That's right.
And in 1982, you went back.
I went back. Andrew Alexander hired me in. Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis and Catherine O'Hara, I think at that time, had already said that they were going to leave. So now the cast was down to 4 people. I would be now the 5th.
Yeah.
And so it was daunting, actually, because I came in, I wasn't allowed to just kind of slip in the back door and hang around and learn. Now I was 1/5 of the cast, a cast that had normally been 7. So
Joe was there, wasn't it?
Joe Flaherty was the anchor.
Joe is Guy Caballero.
Guy Caballero is right there.
right
Guy,
there.
how are you?
Joe, what was it like when he arrived?
By the end of the season, we were always just frazzled. We'd worked ourselves up. We had had all sorts of issues.
Oh, sure.
And you were scared, I think. Remember?
Well, God, I'd heard, you know.
What issues?
No, there were no issues. No, but it was a long season. It was people were tired. People were nerves were frayed.
And 3 people were leaving the cast, so
Yes.
they weren't that happy with the show at that point. So, so Marty had to come in during all of that.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, "It's a show like this all the time."
But it was fun, and I did. I knew that I was now in this cast. And by the way, this show had just been nominated for 1,400 Emmys. I mean, I wasn't coming into a show that was going like this. I was coming into a show that was already there within the comedy world, already legendary. So it was daunting, but luckily I knew all the cast members intimately for a long time.
We'll have more with a very decent fellow named Martin Short. In a
Oh,
moment.
he's fun. I hear he's great.
You invented on that SCTV Jackie Rogers Jr.
Yes, Joe hated him. Joe despised that character.
I heard. Yeah. What happened? This was not a positive table read the day he.
No, the first time, he was irritating. Oh, that guy got on my nerves.
Why, sir? What was wrong with him?
He was a composite of about 3 different characters, right?
Yeah.
How did he
and
laugh?
Andrew Alexander's
That's
laugh.
right.
Andrew, we used to get a lot of stuff from Andrew,
Yes.
like Andrew would come in and he'd say, "The script is great." So suddenly you'd look and say, if I'm not mistaken, Andrew's tongue is between his teeth as he laughs. That would be Jackie's laugh, One time, Andrew used to come in. He used to come in and say, "So how's it going?" But what he would put his foot up on would always be a little too high. So there'd always be that moment where he was losing his balance. So Joe and I wrote this, Black Like Vic. We wrote a whole scene about a guy who'd say, "Now let me tell you something, Vic. I believe there's a murder, but one other thing, Vic."
As Andrew, basically, that character.
It was Montgomery Clift and Andrew mixed together, yes. Right. But anyway, Jackie Rogers Jr. was a character that I had written this piece with Dick Blasucci and Paul Flaherty and Mike Short, I think, called Jackie Rogers, Old Mother Nature, She Loves Me. And the idea was that Jackie Rogers
Senior
had been killed doing a special. A special outdoor, and he was a sleazy, Vegas performer. Because at that time, Bill Murray had already kind of taken the club lounge performer. So I felt it was 1982, and I said, well, I can't do a lounge performer because Bill. It looks like I'm doing Bill. But if I have the character that I'm creating killed within the 2-minute promo, then that's fine. So the idea was that this was now 1982, but in 1971, Jackie Rogers Sr. had done this special, Old Mother Nature, She Loves Me, and at one point he's singing to a squirrel, "Pardon me, miss, but I never done that," and you cut to a lurking cougar that is about to in the thing, and then you see a cougar jump, and we had a dummy and a stuntman, and Jackie Sr. is killed, and then we were on late night, and
That's an amazing kill, too.
yeah,
I
it was
remember
quite
it.
a kill. So we needed a circle wipe to come in, for a son to say, "Hi, I'm Jackie Rogers Jr. I miss my dad. I hope you won't. Thursdays at 9." And I was flipping through the paper and I saw a picture of Mickey Rooney Jr. and he looked very pale. So I made him an albino. Then about a month later, Eugene Levy had an idea about a split-screen Vegas Tahoe special and he wanted to do it with Jackie Rogers. And I said, well, Jackie Rogers is dead.
And he would be Bobby Bittman?
Eugene was going to play Bobby Bittman.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Jackie Rogers is dead. You can do it with the son, Jackie Jr. And Eugene said, I hate that character. I don't want to do it with that character. And I said, and then Joe down the hall leaned on, I hate that character too, said Joe. And Catherine, oh, I hate that character. And the cleaning woman, I hate that character too. You know, no one liked that character.
We have a small portion of it here. Shall we look?
Thank you. Do we have a feed? Do we have a feed here? Are we hooked up? Jackie, can you hear me out there on the coast?
I hear you very loud and very clear, Mr. V.
May I just say, what a thrill it is sharing the stage with you tonight, even though it's 3,000 miles away. What's the weather like there? And where is it? Vegas you're at?
I think so, Bob. It's very, very, very hot. Like they say in those Broadway shows, it's damn hot. What's it like out there on the boardwalk, Mr. V?
Well, it's been raining for a couple of days. Very drizzly out here. Incidentally, Jackie, you know, I knew your late father, Jackie Rogers Sr., very well.
Well, I know that, Bob. And so did he.
And I just want to say that if he were here tonight, I'm sure he'd get a big kick out of this, because I think it's going to be a very exciting show.
Well, I believe so too, Bob.
I think the people in Atlantic City think so, don't you? Huh?
So, gee, I'm damp. Just water, no pillow.
We'll get a towel.
Yeah,
we'll get a fan.
No, don't be silly.
Yeah.
And so that was it. And so I kept doing Jackie pieces, and the cast hated them. And
You were only on Saturday Night Live for one season, and everyone thinks you were on forever, which seems to bespeak the impact of those characters you brought.
yeah, some of them were obviously brought from SCTV. That year, Dick Ebersol had signed Billy Crystal and myself, Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer, and Rich Hall to do 1 year contracts. So, because I knew I wouldn't be there more than 1 year, you didn't have a tendency to throw the shows away. You felt like you were doing 22 specials as opposed to.
Oh, that's a good way of looking at it.
Well, it wasn't always the smartest way to look at it, but that's the way I looked at it. And so, I think that maybe that prompted one to work a little harder, make sure you had some representation each show.
When I suspect one of the most famous pieces you ever did was Synchronized Swimming. I don't know if you. Can we explain a little bit the concept? This is just ineptitude at its finest, isn't it?
Yeah. It was the idea that two brothers had chosen to quit their jobs and go for the gold in a sport that was not even allowed in the Olympics, which was synchronized swimming. And there was a character that I had done on SCTV called Lawrence Orbach in a piece called The Halfwits. And so Lawrence kind of moved from that into, well, we just kind of learned what his private world was that his brother was Harry Shearer, and they were going for the gold.
And then we have the defense attorney, Nathan Thurm.
Nathan Thurm.
The most defensive man alive.
I know that. You don't think I know that?
Well, I think I think I had heard that Nathan was based on a makeup person at Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. But that piece, it was a piece, Harry Shearer was playing Mike Wallace. And the premise was that Mike Wallace is covering the Minkman brothers, who make novelty gag. That was Christopher Guest and Billy Crystal, and they were being ripped off by an underworld syndicate. And Mike Wallace had gone to Hong Kong and figured that the culprit was a corporate head named Pingy Lee, his name was. And but they couldn't talk to Pingy, but they talked to his lawyer, Nathan Thurm. And we're writing it together, and I kept doing the makeup artist, who was the most offensive makeup artist. She constantly smoked. And you'd say, gee, is the eyeliner too heavy on the eyes, Betsy? I know that. You don't think I know that? I know that. I do makeup. I would know that. And so I said, well, and Harry Shearer said, oh, you should do that character. And I said, I can't do it, she'll know. And he said, no, she'll never know. And so I said, but she's gonna actually be there when we do it. Oh, that'll be the fun of it, said Harry. And make fun of someone when they're actually there?
What's better?
Yeah. And so we did it, and the character was successful. So, you know, like all characters, if they're successful, you bring them back a few times. And she never found out until the very end. I think her assistant was drunk at the rap party. Betsy, don't you know who Nathan Thurm is? How dumb are you? You're Nathan Thurm. And she said, I know that. You don't think I know that? I know that. I wrote it.
Compare the two creative environments, SCTV and SNL.
Well, you really can't compare them because they're so wildly different. Although I guess by saying that, you're comparing them, aren't you? Well, one is, you know, there were times when we would have there'd be certain scenes on SCTV, and then you'd look at the energy that Saturday Night Live could have, and you'd be envious a little bit. But then once I got to Saturday Night Live, there were certain scenes that you would write, and you know that they would be so well realized on SCTV, but if you try to do them Saturday Night Live, they would bomb. Because a live audience demands, sometimes subtlety is the first thing that gets lost. And Saturday Night Live was about energy and performance, and that's how it's designed that way. And SCTV was about subtlety and nuance and unusually observed behavior.
So you came back to Hollywood. You made your first, well...
Three Amigos.
Three Amigos.
Three Amigos.
So they love the Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos, yes.
The movie is hilarious. It gets better every year. Didn't do so well at the time, I guess.
No, they were. I remember Rex Reed's. It was the first review. We were Steve and Chevy and I were hosting Saturday Night Live, and the
Steve
first
Martin
review.
And Chevy Chase, your co-stars.
Yes, yeah. The three of us were co-hosting Saturday Night Live, and we turn on the TV to see our first review of the film, and Rex Reed starts off by, "What are they smoking in Hollywood?" All right. Next.
And then there were wonderful performances in other films along the years. We know Inner Space was beautiful with Meg Ryan.
Yes, Megan Dennis.
Megan Dennis.
That film.
Yeah. And Father of the Bride, Frank, of course. Yeah. How is Frank, by the way?
Frank is very good. He's doing the same thing. He travels around, helps to make the... I'd love to get my hands on you and straighten out what that you're wearing, and the shoes don't work.
Well, later.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you made one movie that sort of satirized everything you probably had come to learn about the Hollywood power process. You played an agent in Christopher Guest's film, The Big Picture.
Right.
This is the super agent Neil Sussman.
Neil Sussman. And I shot 2 days in that film. We shot all my scenes in 2 days. And I remember just the last second, I thought it would be funny if he looked like he'd had a horrendous eye job. And, but I wasn't wearing a wig. It was my own hair that we were spraying orange. So they pulled my face like that and just pulled it as tight as they could do and hit it. And then at the end of the second day, we couldn't have shot a third day because I just had huge welts on the side of my head from pulling this. But we realized we'd made a mistake. Christopher and I said afterwards that Chris always said that what we should have done is shot half the first day with big eye bags, and then the second day with no eye bags and that look, so he never explained it. Just.
We'll be back with more in a moment.
Oh.
Your dedication to show business is such that every year there's an annual Las Vegas trip you make with...
No, every 4 years.
4?
Yeah.
Well, that's not such dedicated.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's like an election.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
With Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer, Dave Thomas, and Eugene Levy and I. go to Vegas and pretend to be the Rat Pack.
Who's whom?
Well, I like to think of myself as Frank. I guess Eugene is Dean. Paul would be Sammy,
And he'd have no problem with
and
that.
Dave Thomas is Cesar Romero, because who was a minimal member, but you know, Dave was the last person in the room when we gave the names out. So.
Yeah. Any great highlights from these? I mean, I would imagine you go and see the entertainers, the pure.
The first time we went in 1990 was the first time we did this, and in a day and a half we saw Wayne Newton, we saw Anne Margaret,
wow,
and we saw Liza.
Jeez,
It was unbelievable.
It's a lot of energy there.
A lot of energy, a lot of energy. But we were sitting there, and Liza, who was doing this great show, the Riviera, I think, and at one point she said, oh, and every time we'd gone to these shows, they would introduce us, as they do in the shows. Oh, Wayne Newton, do we have some people out there? And, oh, I love these people. And I'd go right to the card, who'd been handed them. And, but Liza said, oh, they're terrific people out there. Oh, my goodness, we got from SCTV, Eugene Levy. Oh, I love him, in the applause thing. And also from SCTV, the wonderful Dave Thomas, the applause thing. And then she'd say, and also a man who's just so brilliant on the piano, and Paul Schaefer. And then she said, and there's someone else out there who's helped me through a lot of stuff. A lot of rough stuff. Now, I'd never met Liza Minnelli. She said, he's been there for me. And so I don't know why I flashed. I leaned to Paul. I said, I bet she's talking about George Hamilton. Because I'd seen George Hamilton in the lobby. I said, I bet he's here. I bet he's introducing George Hamilton. She said, not only is he brilliant, but I think he's real handsome, too. And I leaned over to Paul and said, would you say that George Hamilton is brilliant? She went, Martin Short. So I stood up, I did that, and she said, nice to meet you. And I was completely confused. But she meant, as she explained backstage, that she meant from watching me on television and being in the movies and making her laugh.
You've helped a lot of us through those moments, you know.
Rough stuff.
Yes, sir. All right. We must, along these same lines, as long as we're in the business of show.
Phrase maker.
There's a new, your most recent character is obsessed, of course, with show business.
Well, he is the show business. Jiminy Glick.
He was born on your talk show of a couple years ago.
We wanted a character. Well, you know, Jiminy had actually been a character. The first time I did Jiminy was on Saturday Night Live when I was hosting in 1996. In 1991, I did this film, Pure Luck, and at one point I'm stung by a bee, and I start to swell up. And the look always made me laugh when I see a photograph of it. And so now I was doing the syndicated talk show, and I wanted to be able to go to Farmer's Market and be in disguise and have no one know me, and do kind of camera stuff. And so the first time we did it, we hooked up the cameras, and I was in about 3 hours of makeup, and I went out, and I wanted to handle fish and hand it to people and something like that. And first person came up and said, hey, can I have your autograph? So I thought, okay, well, that's not working. So I thought, oh, you know what? In that bee sting look, you couldn't recognize me. Yeah. So we created that look and then created the character, and then thought he would be a perfect guy to go out and interview celebrities on the sets and things like that.
He was your special correspondent. He was on the red carpet with Joan Rivers.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Jack Lemmon brought up, and I think that Jack actually thought he was sincere, because I said, what does it feel, Jack Lemmon, what is it like being Jack Lemmon? And working, and you worked in Hollywood. Was Harry Cohn, who ran Columbia, was he mean? And Jack said, well, I don't think Harry was mean. I mean, a lot of people thought he was mean, but, you know, I mean, he was very nice to me. But the thing, and I realized he was answering me sincerely, and I realized that I was just another idiot that Jack Lemmon had to talk to.
what I love about Jiminy Glick is he's far more interested in himself than he is about whoever he's talking to.
Oh, yeah, he's a complete lunatic and completely unqualified. You know, it listens to no one and asks the most ridiculously moronic questions and thinks they're hard-hitting. You know, and
we should look at. Can we take a look at a little piece of Primetime Glick? You and your good friend Steve Martin.
Steve Martin, Primetime Glick.
I would think that when you do jokes, you'd want people to respond and laugh.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes they do when it's a different type of person
Different
or
type
audience.
of person, a
Yes.
different type of audience. An audience, let's say, of more with booze on their breath.
No, I think of it as a smarter crowd.
Who?
The audience, for example, that would get my humor is more...
De Kooning. Who's de Kooning?
De Kooning is an important American painter. Did you see the movie Pollock? About the American painter. Did you see the movie Lust for Life? Did you see the movie The Agony and the Ecstasy about Michelangelo?
I saw Madam X with Lana Turner, and in the background there was a wonderful abstract painting that everyone pretended to care about. And I think that that was a de Kooning.
Yeah, very charming.
He's
Very charming.
He's a sweet man.
Yeah, a lovely fella.
He, you know, and you wear the fat well, oddly enough, you know.
Oh, it's amazing. You know, you're in that outfit and you forget you're in it. And then you're...
Really?
Oh, you're taking meetings and, you know, or you're irritated about something. Look, that's not what I said at all, you know. And when we were doing SCTV, people would forget that they were dressed this way.
Really?
In fact, Rick Moranis was the only single one of the cast, and there'd be an extra, and he'd kind of go up to her and, "Hi, how are you doing?" But he'd forget that he'd have one tooth blacked out, and, you know, because you're in the makeup so long.
Oh man, we'll have more with Mr. Short after this. All right. Now the other people get to ask you questions.
Aha.
Always entertaining.
There's an audience!
Yeah, they're here. Yes.
Hi, my name's Miranda, and I'm actually Canadian as well.
Where are you from, Miranda?
Vancouver.
Beautiful.
And I'm wondering about the whole Canadian accent thing. I didn't hear any houses or boats from you today, so I'm wondering how you got rid of that, and if there's a trick.
Well, I wanted to work.
Yeah.
And when I did my first a series in Los Angeles, The Associates, in 1979, I was supposed to be from... They finally made the character from Canada because I couldn't, you know... and Jim Brooks would always change about to concerning. Because I could master every word, but, you know, with the pressure of the audience and everything, I'd say, "Oh, that is... what was that about?"
All right.
Hi, I'm Karen Racer, and I just want to say that I love clowns, so I have to ask if you have any clown paintings in your house, and if so, do you like the happy-faced ones or the sad-faced ones better?
Well, I do have a clown painting. Diane Keaton gave me a clown painting.
Cool.
And the clown is a frown. I always think of Red Skelton. You know, he used to paint clowns everywhere.
Great clowns.
Yeah. And Chris Guest used to play him, Red Skelton. I painted oven mitts with the face of a clown. You know. Yeah, I do have one.
Cool.
I do. Diane collects. She has a huge collection of clown memorabilia.
Is that right?
Yes. She gave me a beautiful Emmett Kelly ring once.
An Emmett Kelly ring?
Uh-huh. From his collection.
Once worn by Emmett Kelly?
No, it's from his collection. It's a wooden carved, and it has Emmett's face on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
I was going to wear it today, but, you know, with black.
Well, it's a good call.
Is there any celebrity Jiminy Glick won't interview, and which celebrity do you think he wants to interview the most?
I don't think there's any celebrity he wouldn't interview because he doesn't know who they are, so it's...
They're all celebrities.
They're all celebrities. I mean, he's, you know, he's constantly saying, "How wonderful, it's a chance to talk to Billy Crystal, and to say, you know. And I would say, you know, he'd probably want to interview Brando just to see what craft service would whip up that day. You know, 'cause it would have to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank Mr. Martin Short.
Thank you.
Thank
My
you, sir.
pleasure.
Absorb it. I love you.
Thank you, Chica. Thank you, Joey. John Davies Productions.
The star-studded audience tonight.
From Cannes, right there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Martin Short.